I was also a troubled youth, if you will. And I wanted to continue to go out and help people, protect people, defend people, and coach people. So friends, I started coaching bodybuilding at 17, 18. I started right away. I mean, I only had about a year of bodybuilding experience under my belt, but because I had such an amazing coach, I learned all the secrets right away. I became so passionate about it, and he actually utilized me as kind of his sidekick, taught me everything quickly so that I could take on some of his extra work that he couldn't handle. And I made a little bit of money, and it made him more money. But through that is how I became an addiction recovery coach, because I found at a very early age that most of the bodybuilders I worked with also suffered from addictions. But I had already been working with the so-called troubled youth for a few years by then. Because in a way, myself, I was also a troubled youth, if you will. And I wanted to continue to go out and help people, protect people, defend people, and coach people. And so by the time I was 20, I was already putting together anti-bullying programs. I am so passionate about what I do, and I often get asked why. People ask me all the time, well, how could you be so passionate about teaching kids against bullies? There's always going to be bullies. There's always been bullies. And so today I wanted to share the first time that I was ever bullied. The first time I was bullied was also the first time I was ever beaten up. When I was in the 3rd grade, we moved to an area called Hightstown, New Jersey. We lived right down the street from the fire department and right across the street from the projects. My mother couldn't afford to put us anywhere else, but she also didn't want to put us in the projects because by the 3rd grade I had already started to have some problems socializing and fitting in with other kids. Because I was already experiencing a lot of inner trauma from my youth, I suppose. So I was one of the only white kids in the area. And again, the projects being across the street were filled with a lot of minorities, mostly Latinos and blacks. Many of them became the best of friends. But the first time that I was ever bullied and beaten up in the 3rd grade was by 3 older kids. It was the beginning of the day, first thing in the morning, and I was about to get on the school bus. And imagine a small 3rd grader, yay high, with a big old backpack on. And as I took a couple steps to get onto the bus, I immediately fell backwards. And all I saw were feet. Just feet stomping me in the face, stomping me in the rib cage, kicking me in the face, kicking my legs. And I remember all I could think to do was to cover my face. But that left my ribs open and my stomach open. And subsequently, years following that incident, I started to have more and more stomach issues, potentially from the damage caused by that beating. There were 3 older kids, middle school age, and I believe that 2 of them were in the 8th grade, while 1 was in the 7th grade, I think. Well, as I'm being stomped on and kicked and beaten, and I believe one of them even spit on me at one point, could have been sweat, I don't know, but I remember getting wet. I just remember the bus driver yelling, "Stop!" That's all. No one did anything. No one came to help me. The bus driver yelled, "Stop." And those 3 kids ran off. I got on the bus, sat down, and I began to cry. I cried because obviously it hurt. It hurt to be kicked and stomped on in the face and the ribs and the stomach. But I remember most of the things they were saying were about me being skinny, poor, and white. And there were a few kids on the bus that had some empathy and felt sorry for what happened, and a couple kids checked on me to make sure I was okay. I remember that. And then, of course, I get to school, and it's the talk of the school. I'm the skinny, poor, white kid that got beaten. So apparently some kids had enough anger in their heart that they needed to take it out on me. And now that I'm a 45-year-old father of 6, and their current ages are 21, 17, 14, 11, 8, and 6. And so this incident has taken a lot of shapes over the years throughout my life, but especially throughout raising my children. And in that moment, I could have very easily became bitter and angry at black people for doing that to me, because it was 3 black kids that did it to me. And again, everything out of their mouth was a racial slur insulting me for being skinny, poor, white, cracker, etc. I don't remember much about the school day that went on from there, but I know that somebody from the school, probably the principal, called my mother. My mom came into the school, and clearly I knew who did it to me. I knew the 3 kids that jumped me. Not well, but I knew them. And I didn't say a word about who they were to anyone. And my mother didn't let me leave school early. She wanted to make sure that I stayed in school and finished the day. And I'm grateful that she did, and I know there was a very good reason for it. And at the end of the day, when I took the bus home, I believe I felt very scared. I got home and I went inside to the house and I talked to my mom. My mom was there waiting for me. And one of the biggest things that I will always remember about this conversation that I've taken with me throughout my life is when she said, Adam, it had nothing to do with you being white and them being black. It had to do with whatever they're going through at home. And now, after 25 years of mentoring troubled youth, running anti-bullying programs, teaching self-defense, working with current and recovering drug addicts, that statement has held true all these years. It's almost never about the recipient or the person that the anger and the hate or the violence is being directed towards. It's almost always inward. It's about whatever those people or that person that's exhibiting the hate and the anger and the violence. It's about what that person is going through inside their heart, in their minds, in their life. And this incident has shaped me in so many ways. First off, thank God above, I have an adopted father who's also a progressive fighting systems instructor. And I believe that actually he became certified as an instructor after that situation, strictly to teach me to fight. And so he did. So shortly after that, in the 3rd grade, he started teaching me how to fight. Teaching me self-defense, teaching me ground fighting, grappling, teaching me boxing, teaching me elbows, knees, teaching me tactics that no one else knew. That no one in elementary school, middle school, high school, and even up to college, no one knew. I was given the tools to defend myself. I have been attacked many times, in many, many ways, with weapons, hand-to-hand combat, being shot at, knifed, stabbed. I've experienced a lot throughout my life. But I go back to that moment where my mother said, this is not about you being white or them being black. This is about what they're going through. And friends, that will always hold true. That's not to excuse what people do. That's not to give them a free card to say, hey, you're going through a lot. Go take it out on somebody, unassumingly. Not at all. In fact, more people need to be held responsible and accountable for what they're doing right now. But we need to get to the root problem. What is the root cause that is creating this anger, animosity, hatred, violence to be displayed in such high rates? But this is also why I have become so passionate about teaching others how to defend themselves. This is also why from that moment on, I went around looking for others being bullied. Then I stood up for them. I'll share one more story that consequently comes from that, which is when I was in high school. And I've always had a soft spot in my heart, a large amount of empathy for people with cerebral palsy, because I knew a couple people in high school that I became friendly with cerebral palsy. One in particular, we'll call him Jack. I was a sophomore in high school, and I was walking to my friend's house, To get to my friend's house, we had to walk through this forest, or like a small section of trees, like a wooded area to get to the next development. I had already picked up my one friend, and we were walking through the trees to get to our other friend's house. And as you get through the tree line, you enter into a cul-de-sac, which is a circle full of houses. In that cul-de-sac lived Jack. Jack had cerebral palsy, and he was in a motorized wheelchair. And while we were coming out of the tree line, we saw Jack leaving his house coming down the ramp on his electric wheelchair. And right as he got down to the sidewalk, I hear my friend, who we'll call David, yell, "Jack, watch out." And I wasn't from this neighborhood. I went to a different school. So I didn't know what was going on, but I turn and as I look over to see this kid, Jack, coming to the sidewalk, I see two older boys, which we knew were out of high school, not in college, just, I don't know, doing whatever with their lives. And they were walking down the sidewalk, both smoking something. They were getting very close to Jack. And as my friend David yelled to Jack, Jack looked over, saw these two boys, and then turned his wheelchair the other way to go the opposite direction of these two boys, which I think he was probably going to go back up his driveway to get back into his house. But his wheelchair wasn't fast enough, and we were far away. And these two older boys proceeded to walk quickly down the sidewalk to get to Jack. And as soon as they got to Jack, they both took one side of his wheelchair and started shaking him violently. Shaking his wheelchair and bouncing him up and down, and he's just flailing back and forth uncontrollably. And he started yelling and screaming the way that someone with, I guess, cerebral palsy might do. And then they started to tease him with this stuff. And that enrages me. And I hope and pray that anyone ever watching this video would never, ever, ever do something like that. Because that person with cerebral palsy didn't ask for that. They didn't ask to be put in that position. So don't you dare ever tease them for anything that they go through. And these two boys were shaking him so badly that he started to fall out of his wheelchair. So they started rocking his wheelchair back and forth, and I lost it. And I'll be straight up, I started to cry. I was so angry. They were tears of anger. And I ran over to them. And remember, I was a sophomore in high school, and these two boys were out of high school. And I ran as fast as I could, and I just knocked one of them out immediately. One punch knocked him out, grabbed the other one by the collar, threw him on the ground, and I started slamming him on the ground. And I'm not giving details for any other reason than to explain what happened. And even in expressing this story, it brings up so much rage in my heart. And I didn't stop until my friend David came over to me and grabbed me and pulled me off. But ultimately, as far as I know, these two boys never touched Jack again. And then David ran into Jack's house, knocked on slamming on the door, and Jack's mom came running out. And I was so angry at these two for what they did. But now, all these years later, I realize that obviously whatever they did to Jack was because of something that they were taught in their home. So what kind of a parent perpetuates that behavior? Well, we know that frequently bullies in the home result in bullies outside of the home. Bullying parents can often create bullying children. And nowadays in this society in 2024, we need more people to stand up for what is right. And don't let anyone tell you that what's right isn't a matter of right or wrong, because there's no such thing as right or wrong. It's what you feel. There is right and there is wrong. And I hope and pray that all of you watching will choose to do what's right and choose to stand up for those who cannot stand for themselves. I didn't know Jack until that day, but because I knew a couple other kids in my school with cerebral palsy, I had a feeling of what he had gone through and what that incident could create inside of him. What being shaken like that and treated like that would do to him. And I don't know why, but I have dozens and dozens of stories like this. Incidents that have occurred in my life that have given me opportunities like this to stand up for someone else who couldn't stand up for themselves. And I am truly grateful for every single one of them. Maybe I haven't handled every single one of them in the best way, but looking back at them, I know that I still did what's right. So friends, I have a feeling that here going into November of 2024, there's going to be a lot of opportunity to stand for what is right. And I encourage all of you to teach your children at home to stand up against bullying, to stand up for what is right, as we know what is right is about to be challenged heavily. And so are we. Thank you for watching another video, friends. Please like, subscribe, and share this video. I'm Coach hardgainZ. I'll catch you in the next video.